On the eve of Parliament's vote on the Boris Johnson report, another Partygate headache for the government. Police say they are considering footage of a Christmas party at Conservative campaign headquarters during the pandemic. Bereaved families who stuck to COVID rules say it's yet another blow.
Furious isn't the word, but the way it made me feel, I was sick to my stomach.
A senior minister has apologised for the footage, but tonight, separate undercover video of the Prime Minister is also being criticised.
I'm a big fan of everybody studying maths to 18, but it turns out that we need to focus on biology to 18.
But was Rishi Sunak right to joke about trans people? Also tonight. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrives in Beijing on a mission to reset relations with China and...
Oh my God! Oh, I didn't know they were here.
A Father's Day surprise for Andy Murray on a good day for British tennis.
This is ITV News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. The Met Police say they are considering footage which appears to show a Christmas party at Conservative campaign headquarters during the COVID pandemic in 2020. A senior minister today apologised for the video, which shows staff dancing, drinking and laughing, with Michael Gove admitting the images are terrible. But bereaved relatives of those who died with the virus went further, saying the footage is sickening. Our political correspondent Carl Dinham reports.
It wasn't just a quiet glass of wine. The first video to emerge of a Partygate event shows something altogether more raucous, and participants who knew that what they were doing was wrong.
As long as we don't stream it, we're like,
But they weren't bending the rules, they were dancing all over them.
The first thing I want to say is to apologise to everyone who will have seen this video for what went on. And we knew that there was an event at Conservative campaign headquarters that was held by people who were involved in the Sean Bailey mayoral campaign. There was an investigation, disciplinary action was taken, but these images, they're just terrible. So I do want to apologise.
All this, of course, as other people were being prevented from seeing dying relatives. Jane Roach lost her sister and her dad. This is now a particularly painful Father's Day.
So when I saw it, it really enraged me. I can't even use a word that describes. Angry isn't the word, even furious isn't the word. But the way it made me feel, I was sick to my stomach.
What makes this party a live issue again is that two people who attended, Sean Bailey and Ben Hallett, have just been awarded honours in Boris Johnson's resignation honours list. The opposition say the Prime Minister, who approved the list, should intervene.
What was your reaction, your gut reaction, when you saw that video?
It's disgusting, it's infuriating, it's shocking, it will enrage people across our country. And I think there's a real test now of leadership and character for Rishi Sunak. Is he too weak now to take the meaningful action to withdraw this honours list from Boris Johnson?
The Metropolitan Police investigated this party when it first came to light, but took no action. Today, the police said they are now considering the new footage.
Carl's here to talk more about this. And Carl, does this just add to the Tories' troubles with Partygate then?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a reminder to everyone of just how outrageous some of this behaviour was. The day before, MPs will debate the Privileges Committee report into all the times that the committee believed Boris Johnson lied to Parliament. Now, today, Michael Gove said that he thought that it was a good report, but that the recommendations in it went too far, and therefore he would abstain. And I think quite a lot of Tory MPs will probably take that route and duck the difficult decision, but it's not a good look.
And Carl, away from Partygate, there's a separate video that's emerged tonight on the Pink News website, this time featuring the Prime Minister himself. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's right. So this is from a couple of weeks ago. The Prime Minister was talking to the 1922 committee, a group of backbench Conservative MPs, and he made this joke about the Lib Dem leader Ed Davies' attitude to trans women.
You may have noticed Ed Davey has been very busy. Like me, you would have probably seen that he was busy trying to convince everybody that women clearly had penises. And I was reflecting, you will all know, I am a big fan of everybody studying maths to 18. But it turns out that we need to focus on biology to 18.
Now, some people will find that offensive and transphobic. Some people do find it offensive. Some people, however, think that it's just a common sense viewpoint. And I think the Prime Minister will agree that he's trying to appeal to those people, the latter group, who think it's a common sense viewpoint. Indeed, Downing Street's view tonight is that this is no different to anything that the Prime Minister has said before. And so I don't think that he will be particularly upset that this has come into the public domain.
All right, Carl, thank you. Nicola Sturgeon has insisted she's done nothing wrong as she was seen for the first time since her arrest. The former First Minister of Scotland was questioned by police investigating SNP finances, but was released without charge a week ago, pending further investigation.
I can't say very much just now. What I will say is reiterate the statement I issued last Sunday. I am certain that I have done nothing wrong. I intend to be back in Parliament in the early part of the week. I'll make myself available for questions then, obviously within the constraints that I am referring to right now.
To China now, where officials have described talks as constructive on the first day of a visit by the US Secretary of State. Antony Blinken met with the Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang, and despite an admission from Beijing's officials tonight that the two countries' relationship is at its lowest point on record, analysts say the fact both sides agreed to meet is progress in itself. Callum Watkinson has this report.
The handshake that has been on hold since February. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met his Chinese counterpart in Beijing today, but the meeting was originally planned for 4 months ago. It was postponed after a high-altitude Chinese balloon entered US airspace. Eventually shot down by a fighter jet, hopes of a rapprochement between the two powers seemed to deflate along with it. On the eve of this trip, President Biden, who met his Chinese counterpart in Bali in November, downplayed the significance of the balloon and talked up the potential for dialogue.
I'm hoping that over the next several months I'll be meeting with Xi again and talking about legitimate differences we have, but also how those areas we can get along.
Those differences are many. In April, China staged what it called combat readiness patrols around Taiwan as a warning, it said, to those agitating for the island's independence. There's also the small matter of its pledge to Vladimir Putin of a friendship without limits just before he invaded Ukraine. So handshakes and smiles on a warm Beijing day, but a relationship that remains rather chilly.
Whatever Tony Blinken says, the Chinese will really take a pinch of salt in here, whether it would really have any fundamental trust. And equally, on the American side, I think the bilateral trust between the two remain extremely low.
The State Department said establishing channels of communication that could reduce the risk of miscalculation is one objective of this trip. Perhaps we should all be grateful that these two nuclear-armed powers are talking at all. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Moving on to sports now, and in the cricket, the first Ashes test remains evenly poised after rain interrupted day 3 at Edgbaston. England lost 2 early wickets in their second innings after taking a narrow first innings lead of 7 runs. They'll resume tomorrow on 28 for 2. Second time around, an overall lead of 35 runs with 2 days to play. Formula 1, and Max Verstappen has won the Canadian Grand Prix.
because it's Verstappen in Canada for the second year in a row, winning for Red Bull, who reach 100.
The Dutchman has now won 6 out of 8 races this season and leads the championship by 69 points. It was his 41st race win, drawing him level with Brazilian legend Ayrton Senna. Fernando Alonso finished second, with Lewis Hamilton third for Mercedes. On to tennis now, and Katie Boulter clinched her first WTA Tour title at this afternoon's final of the Nottingham Open. Up against Jodie Burrage, it was an all-British affair, the first at this level since 1977. And there was more silverware when Sir Andy Murray secured his 10th win in a row, even if the odds were rather stacked against his opponent, world number 181. Not that diminished his children's pride, as Neil Connery reports.
Victory for Andy Murray at the Nottingham Open, giving him the perfect start to summer. The 3-time Grand Slam winner savouring his success after beating Arthur Cazot 6-4, 6-4. Now 36 with a metal hip, this year marks a decade since his first Wimbledon win. It's 7 years since his last grass title. As he gave his post-match interview, he talked of his hopes of celebrating with his family.
Hopefully I'll get back home tonight, see my kids for Father's Day. Oh my God!
He was left stunned seeing his wife and children in the crowd, delivering an even more perfect Father's Day present.
I had no idea they were coming.
It's been a good day for British tennis. Katie Boulter and Jodie Burrage reaching the WTA final in a career first for both. Boulter, who was British #1 going into this match, pulled off her first major tournament win, beating Burrage 6-3, 6-3. With Wimbledon just 2 weeks away, it's looking good for Britain's top tennis talent. Neil Connery, ITV News.
And just before we go, a couple who reared an abandoned duck have told of their surprise after she eventually returned to their home to have 11 ducklings. Phil and Julia Garner spent 18 months looking after Frida, but thought they'd seen the last of her when she went back to the wild last year. But 5 months on, their old feathered friend returned, and this time with a male in tow. The couple say the birds have brought plenty of joy, but say they hope in due course they'll head out into the wild. All right, and that's it for us tonight. There are continuing updates throughout the night on our streaming service, ITVX. Head to itv.com and scroll down to the news section. But from all of us here on the Weekend Team, bye-bye. Have a very good rest of the evening.